Welcome to the Fort McMurray, coming to you from Westwood Community High School, March 10th, 1989. My name is Chris J. Phillips, and joining me today for expert commentary is Mike Bowden, managing editor of the Fort McMurray Today and author of the Willie DeWitt biography, Lord of the Ring. Now, Mike, the main event tonight is the comeback. They call it the comeback of former Canadian heavyweight champion Ken Lakusta taking on Rick King Kong Kellar of Council Bluffs, Iowa. What does this fight mean to Lakusta, if anything?
Well, I think what Lakusta's trying to do, he's just trying to get his feet wet, get back in the ring. Lakusta retired after he got beat last May by Razor Reddick. Lakusta's retired 3 times and making comebacks. And I think he's just trying to get another shot at the Canadian title that he held in '86 for 3 months and get some paydays against bigger contenders.
Now, both these fighters are 33 years of age. Is this Kellar, is he a former opponent for Lakusta, or just a setup?
I don't know if he's a setup, but you could call him a professional opponent. We're not talking about somebody who's got his sights set on Mike Tyson down the road, and he's fought a lot. He's fought some credible fighters, but I wouldn't expect that he's going to give Lakusta a lot of trouble.
Okay, in our first match of the evening, coming to you from Westwood Community High School, we have the homecoming of Cliff Gunpowder, who hasn't fought for 6 years, taking on Mike, the Peacemaker, Kip. That should be an interesting fight.
Well, Cliff did some sparring earlier in the week with amateur Edgar Davis Jr., and he's coming off a 6-year layoff, and he didn't look sharp. His reflexes look slow. He got hit a lot, so I think it's going to be a long night for Cliff. He's going to really have to come out and try and get an early knockout if he's going to do much.
Okay, and that bout is a 4-round middleweight. In our second bout of the evening, we have a 6-round lightweight contest between Mike Short and Gord Hanna. Short's coming off a 13-month inactive list after a car accident, and Hanna hasn't fought for a year and a half. Short, he's a stylish fighter. Hanna's a brawler. Mike, you've seen Hanna fight.
Sure, it's a typical boxer brawler fight. Hanna's got no polish, nothing fancy at all. He just comes out from the opening bell, wailing away, and hopes to knock you down.
Okay, that should be interesting. That's our second fight of the evening. And our third match, we have a late replacement, Stan Cunningham, replacing Byron Prince. And Stan is taking on Rob Stowell, only a 19-year-old, and that's in a 4-round middleweight. And our semi-main event, Jimmy Gradson taking on Blake Gabriel in an 8-round light heavyweight event. Now, these fighters, they have a chance possibly of fighting Danny Stonewalker off Fort McMurray for a possible Canadian title.
That could be an interesting one. I've seen Blake Gabriel fight a couple times. He's a good-looking fighter. I don't think he's not going to hurt you a lot. Gradson's a bit of an unknown factor. He's being trained, of course, by the world-famous George Chuvalo, and George is with us in McMurray today, and I think he's made himself well known to the locals. Both of them are really fighting as heavyweights tonight, though. They're both coming in around 203, 204 pounds. Gradson's problem is he's not a disciplined fighter. He can't get his weight down. For him to get a shot at Stonewalker or perhaps Featherstone, he's got to get his weight down, so we're looking to see what he's going to do here tonight.
Okay, once again, the main event is Ken Lakusta coming out of retirement to take on Rick King Kong Kellar in a 10-round event, the heavyweight events. And as you mentioned, Mike, George Chuvalo's in town. He's a colorful character, and he's a trainer-manager of Jimmy Gradson. And earlier this week, we had the opportunity to talk to Chuvalo about the heavyweight scene now compared to nowadays.
Well, the world boxing situation has changed globally. I mean, if you look at heavyweight division, which is the division I usually look at since I was heavyweight, it's changed because heavyweights today don't want to fight anybody else. They want to keep the status quo. They want to, number 7 wants to stay 7, doesn't want to fight number 1 or 10. 5 doesn't want to mess around with number 2 or number 9. They all want to stay in their own spot and hope by virtue of elimination that they're eventually going to fight Mike Tyson for the big dough. So you'll very seldom find a guy in the top 10 fighting another guy in the top 10 today, whereas in the old days, the guys were more active and they're fighting each other more than the top 10. And today, the only thing they're thinking about is giving Sean Tyson, and not really beating Tyson, but just fighting him so they collect the big money. And I think it's a different attitude today. And the attitude today with Tyson also is not so much the will to win, but the will to survive. And that's what they try to do, survive, even though they don't do a very good job of it. But it's a different attitude today that prevails, and I think it was healthier in the old days because the guy had a chance to fight more often, to develop the skills, whereas today they're just trying to break the top 10 and try to hold their position. And not fight anybody of any importance. They just try to hold their position and hopefully eventually hope that Tyson comes down to fight him. I don't think that's a healthy situation, but but financially it can prove to be very beneficial. But I don't think it's good. I don't think once you fight with the title is fine, but the other fights don't seem to mean as much. So there's not many big heavyweight fights outside of a crack of the title. So you don't see that anymore.
he was saying financially it's good for Tyson. Are you disappointed you came too early into your career, or would you like to be fighting now where it's more financial reward?
I'm just glad I was born. I want to be, maybe in my next life I'll be born again, who knows? And it'll be, maybe better than today. So I would like to think what life gives you. So I'm just happy to be alive.
Do you think Tyson's dominating right now? Would he have dominated when you fought?
No, I don't think he would have been Ali at his best. But I think Mike Tyson can be champion in a lot of eras, and I think he's going to get better and better. I think Mike Tyson is a great fighter today, and he's going to be even greater as long as he doesn't get messed up, mind-wise. And there are indications that might happen, but he's still a very strong kid. He's still, I think he misses Kevin Rooney from his last fight. He didn't look as good as last fight as he had in the past, but hopefully for himself he'll get that straight away and get Kevin Rooney back in camp. I think he needs Kevin back in camp.
Okay, I never had the opportunity to see you fight. What kind of fighter was George Chuvalo? Was anything like Ken Lakusta at all?
Well, I'm probably more aggressive than Kenny. I think I was more aggressive than Kenny, but Kenny was a good solid fighter. But I don't like talking about me with other guys, But as a matter of fact, you haven't seen me fight. They asked me to bring up my second Ali fight, so you can have a look at that day and you can judge for yourself. But I think I was a damn good fighter.
Well, Mike, George Chuvalo, I had a great time interviewing him. He's an interesting character, but very modest man. He wouldn't come out and say what impact he's had on boxing in Canada and Canadian history of boxing. Personally, as a fight fan, what do you think Chuvalo's had on boxing in Canada?
I think Chuvalo is probably Canada's best-known boxer, and that stems mostly from the fact that he's got the title of being the guy who went the distance with Ali. Very few fighters ever did that.
Do you think the young fighters say no, really, like a Lakusta or a Roddick, know what Chuvalo